We'd know all about Salerno just as soon as the Navy got us there. We sailed from Bizerte and Tripoli, Sicily and Iran. Big family party, General Clark's 5th Army and General Montgomery's British 8th Army. Part of the 8th had already crossed from Sicily to the toe of the Italian boot. We figured to lop off the foot. A lot of us did that figuring too easy. Scuttlebutt had Hitler tied down in the east and Italy written off. Intelligence officers' briefings didn't. And all of a sudden, there was no more Scuttlebutt. We were back in the war. Now it was going to be our show. Some facts and figures you don't forget, ever. This was September 9th, 1943. The hour? Call it H hour. Here was Salerno, and what a no-welcome committee. The worst poured down from those mountains beyond the beaches. We held on to the beaches and punched on into the narrow Salerno plain behind them. That was D-Day and the night that followed. Our goal was Naples, but those mountains stood between. From them, enemy observation could spot every try we made for the foothills. Then he'd send armor tearing down. We were doing some tearing too, and units were breaking through. Remember the kids' game, King of the Mountain? Well, that's what this was, but for keeps. Down below, we had a pal. The Navy was landing haymakers up into those hills. The enemy began to move in the troops that Monty's 8th had chased out of Sicily. But we were doing a little moving in ourselves, and every hour we were getting more of the things we needed to keep the show on the road. Sinews of war, that's what speechmakers call it. The same as muscle. And in our slugging match, we sure could use plenty of it. We were a going business, but setting up shop calls for real precautions. Maybe the tenants who moved out don't like you. These didn't, so we were mighty careful when we tidied up. Anyone who wasn't careful was likely to be sorry for it, if he was lucky. Just to keep from going soft, the engineers were taking time out from work to fight, and from fighting to work. The stuff that began to move over their roads made them the prettiest sight this side of US 1. Back of the beaches, a lot of equipment had to be written off. The Germans weren't letting anybody forget that they had firepower up in their hilltops. Those same gunners were having themselves a high old time holding down our use of the airstrips. We had two of them. One in a town called Montecorvino had been captured by the British. Our engineers built the other. Until we knocked off those guns, real air support had to come from Sicily or Navy carriers. But worse, those guns were costing us men. An ancient Greek temple had become a clearing station. And those nurses, some of them on the beaches before the end of D-Day, worked round the clock, treating and helping to evacuate the wounded. We stopped thinking about Naples. Only roads and hills with numbers, and towns that had names hard to pronounce. Battipaglia was one of the toughest to take too. But we had to, because it was a railroad junction and straddled the two best highways in the area. Reasons were that made a town important to us, the same reasons made it important to the enemy. And so those towns kept changing managements. We'd go in, get pushed out, and then have to go in all over again. And of course, worst were the ones up in the foothills. Up in the mountains with units circling backward and forward, you never knew who you'd meet up with. Sometimes it might be friends. A patrol could be a few yards away from an enemy hilltop, as the crow flies, not being a crow, still be miles away. Those were the miles that had to be bought, and the price was high. It was going to go higher. For now, the Nazis were readying an all-out counterattack. From the north, he rushed his best divisions, seasoned Grenadier Panzers, the veteran Hermann Goering Division. He'd smash us, hurl us back into the sea. We had eyes that could look down and see him building that powerhouse drive. And we kept him off balance wherever we could. The Nazi kept on plowing up our two airstrips and tried to pull down our carrier-based air power wherever it was flown in. Then he Sunday Punch. He threw in everything, and everything still included guns hammering down on us from above. We had hardware of our own. We blocked that Sunday Punch and let go a few of our own. We'd blast away at those mountains, then go in and take over, but it never got monotonous. The enemy's punch began losing its steam, but he was in there slugging, and every foot of ground was costing us manpower. The towns on the Salerno plain and in the foothills were still being taken and retaken. By now, some of them didn't even look like towns anymore. We were learning a lot about the enemy. We'd move into a town to find he'd left units behind to whittle us down and pave the way for his next try to take it back again. Any shelled-out ruin might conceal a machine gunner or a sniper. A pile of rubble made neat cover for a Nazi, handy with a grenade. By now, we knew the counterattack had failed. Hitler had lost his chance to sweep us out of Italy. There was a message saying just that to every officer and enlisted man in our Fifth Army. One little phrase hit it right on the head. "We are here to stay," said Lieutenant General Mark W. Clark. Don't forget, this was still Hitler's Fortress Europe. The enemy could still hit hard. laying tactics. They still spell out fight. We began to see the last of the mountains and started thinking again about Naples. There was relief now for men in forward areas as reserves became available. Relief wouldn't be enough if you'd been stopped by those delaying tactics. Out of those tactics, we were getting us bigger batches of guests, most of them real polite by now. But it was still war. One town, Salerno, took 100 rounds from our Navy guns before we could move in. Other towns, out of big gun range, had to be pried open like oysters. Mop up one town, then on to the next. Where the fighting had moved on, civilians would reappear. They'd even welcome us. It meant they understood that this was the price they had to pay if their towns had any value to the enemy. They had tossed old Benito out of his job and were ready to take punishment. That was the only way to get rid of his buddies. Mussolini's buddies were now returning that feeling. Demolitions, mines, time bombs could only delay us, but they could create horror and hardship for the civilian population. The Nazi had turned vengeful. Civilian made as fair a target as soldier. Here again was Eboli and other towns we'd fought for. Now they were ours for good. We pushed on toward Naples. More and more people were welcoming us along the way, no longer afraid of the Nazis' return. A pretty good sign. There were other signs, too. The enemy was destroying his equipment, but still leaving us with beat-up roads and beat-up bridges. Come to think about it, we were pretty beat up, too, by now. Relief units became a welcome sight. Wrecked towns no longer meant warfare. It had become enemy spite as he fled north. We'd have to move fast if anything was to be saved in Naples. Rebuilding roads became routine, and we pushed on toward that port and those airfields we wanted. Outfits that could stop along the way found they'd been winning a popularity contest along with the battle. It's a funny thing about soldiers, anyway our soldiers. Kids always go for them in a big way, and we do a bit of melting down ourselves. You got to wondering what it was like to be a youngster in the middle of a war. Wonder, too, what kind of miracle it would take to make some of them laugh, be kids again. Well, we did our best to bring those kids their miracle. Then our military government people came in to distribute needed relief and reorganize paralyzed communities. There was nothing left for our armies now but to move into Naples. And maybe Naples wasn't waiting. Here again, it was the old story, only worse. The time bomb and the mine. Here, too, methodical destruction. But we expected that and had a few ready-made tricks to counter it. Our great prize, the port of Naples, had been wrecked. But this, too, we had expected. Within weeks, some installations would be back in use. The retreating enemy had missed no bets. The main aqueduct had been cut, and emergency water supply had to be improvised. Not a single utility had been left functioning, but they would be restored. We took care of that. We had gained our victory, and all Italy south of the Volturno was ours. Neither our leaders nor any of us would forget those others. The ones who'd helped us crash the European continent. American fighting men who brought honor to themselves, the armed forces, and our country.